Thank you. Okay. That's me. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Meet these wonderful ladies. This is a newly built rainwater harvesting system and water storage tank in Naivasha, Kenya. It's a typical construction site. You've got the saws, you've got the cement, you've got the hammers and the bricks and the shovels. What makes this site different is that these are women. These 9 women built this rainwater harvesting system and tank. And these women are not engineers by trade. In fact, most of these women in this picture did not graduate from 8th grade. They are actually commercial sex workers. So what we do is we train women to be able to resolve their own water issues in developing countries. And why do we do that? These women sort of had this unexpected path of becoming these water builders and masons, as I had a very unexpected path becoming a water advocate. I actually have a background in music and as a preschool teacher. And on Tuesday, September 11th, I was supposed to be in the World Trade Center when the planes hit to go teach my preschool class. And on that day, the world changed, as it might on Tuesday as well. And I, as a songwriter, my inspiration was what was happening around me, to see New Yorkers just find the goodness in themselves and help each other and connect. And in response, I wrote a song called We Rise. And that song, I had this crazy notion I was going to travel around the world and build a million-voice choir to sing this song around the globe. And this time come together not through tragedy and despair, but this time through hope and through our connection, to find that shared connection that we all want the same things for ourselves and our families. So I gave away all my belongings, took my backpack and my guitar, and I started traveling around the world, inviting people to be part of what we called the Million-Voice Choir, to sing this song with me all over the globe on one day. And it just so happened one of the metaphors of this song is this notion that it takes a single drop of water to start a wave. And so that was my message to people, to see themselves as that drop of water, to see how powerful they are, that their every thought and word and action would ripple out just like a drop of water would. So when they were choosing their path, to think, to do good and to be good. And so I started to get known as the water lady, the lady singing for water. And so I was invited to all these different conferences to speak and to perform. And one of the main ones that I got invited to was the United Nations Water for Life Conference. And it was there that I learned about the water crisis. I had no idea at the time that there were 1.2 billion people in the world who didn't have access to water. I didn't know at the time that 3 to 5 million people were dying of water-related disease every year. I didn't know at the time that it was disproportionately affecting women and girls because they were the ones who spent nearly all day fetching water. And so the burden of lack of access to water was always on, is on the women around the globe. You'll see them carrying 42 pounds of water on their head over rough terrain. You'll see them washing clothes and dishes in local rivers that they have to walk to. You'll see that this water obviously is not clean. It's being shared by animals and it's open source, so there's a lot of contamination. You'll see that because they're intaking this dirty water, there's sickness. And so there's money spent on clinics and health visits and medicines and things like that. And then you would not think that because girls and women are the ones who are responsible for getting the water, that there might be some challenges around security. Women and girls, there's very high risk of them getting raped and attacked when they're fetching water. And 1 in 10 girls will drop out of school by the 8th grade because there are no water and sanitation facilities in school. So that was an epiphany for me and what sort of changed everything. When we built the Million Voice Choir and we had over 100 cities and 60 countries singing from all over the globe on September 21st, 2004, although it was a momentous moment, and the fact that I was able to travel to 45 countries and mobilize these people to do this with me, it still was very, very bittersweet. Because here we were with 6 minutes of song, united, singing around the globe. What about minute 7? What do we do now? So the water went from my metaphor to my cause. So I first started in the Philippines, and we opened an organization called A Single Drop for Safe Water, and Lisa told you a little bit about that, where we worked with communities to help them design and implement and maintain their own water and sanitation facilities. And then after we built that organization there, it's still running now, I decided to move into sub-Saharan Africa. We were invited to start thinking about what it might look like to support women, because we didn't have many challenges in the Philippines integrating women into our programs, because they already have a culture where women are leaders, whereas in sub-Saharan Africa it was much more challenging. And one of the reasons we did that was because the Food and Agriculture Organization found that the exclusion of women in community water and sanitation projects is the cause of their high rate of failure. It seemed unfathomable to me to know that women, the people who are the stakeholder who are most impacted by the lack of water and sanitation, who knew where the water sources were, who knew what kinds of needs they had, were not sitting at the table to make these decisions. So that informed how we then decided to design our program. So the Global Women's Water Initiative started what's called the Women's Water Leadership Academy. And the Women's Water Leadership Academy is focusing on building grassroots women's capacity to not only be able to sit at these decision-making tables, but have the expertise, the technical, financial, and education expertise to be able to contribute significantly at those tables. So this is a 3-year program where we select 10 women-led existing organizations in sub-Saharan Africa, and we train them for the course of 3 years, and very, very in-depth around water, sanitation, and hygiene. So in the water sector, it's very huge. There's so many things that we have to think about in water. In sub-Saharan Africa, we're focusing on domestic use, and we're focusing on water as it relates to health. And so our sector is called water, to cover water access and water quality, sanitation, and hygiene. And that acronym is WASH. Because if you have access to water but it's dirty, then you're at risk of water-related disease. If you have clean water, but you don't have toilets, it might get contaminated, so you're at risk. If you have proper sanitation facilities, but you don't use proper hygiene, you're at risk. We have to look at this with an integrated approach. So what we do is we train women in all aspects of water: water access, water quality, sanitation, and hygiene, and we build them as whole WASH leaders. So first, we train them as technicians. As technicians, they are able to construct various water and sanitation technologies. The kinds of technologies we teach them are locally built. They're called appropriate technologies, in that you can use any of the technologies can be built with local materials. They're affordable. If there's any kind of repair that's needed, somebody local can be able to fix them, because that's oftentimes the problems with these big infrastructure projects where nobody knows how to manage them. And so the women learn how to build rainwater harvesting systems and tanks. They learn how to build pit latrines. They know how to build modified slow sand water filters to make sure they have clean water. They learn how to make hand washing stations and menstruation cleaning bays, so girls can have a place to clean themselves when they're at school. Again, using all local materials. We also train them to be able to hand-make products like soap and shampoo, reusable menstrual pads, chlorine, things that they can, again, make locally with no energy, requiring no power or energy, and just being able to sell them locally at affordable prices. And on the second level, we train them as trainers. We want to make sure that they are being able to share their knowledge. There is a saying in South Africa that is basically that you train a man, you train an individual. You train a woman, you train a nation. They share, yes, it is indeed a saying. And they believe that because women share their knowledge. And that's one of the reasons why we are training women, because this wash knowledge and hygiene knowledge needs to be institutionalized. It's being taught over and over again, generation after generation from outside groups, but it needs to come from the inside. It needs to come locally. So we train them as trainers as well. And then finally, at the level of entrepreneurs, we make sure that they can monetize all of these professional services. They professionalize them. So as individuals, the women can earn money constructing. They can earn money as trainers. They can earn money with their small micro business with handmade wash products. The organizations that they represent, we help them to develop stronger grants. They get government contracts, and we also support them to be able to get support from the community, financial as well as labor and in kind. So our expectation when we work with them is once we train them, we'll seed fund them to be able to build these technologies. And we expect them, because this is an academy, they have assignments, we expect them to match our investment. So if we gave them, for example, we gave them seed grants to be able to build 15 tanks. Instead, they built 107. We gave them seed grants to build 100 toilets. Instead, they built 700. We gave them seed grants to build 100 filters. They built 427. We didn't even give them money to protect their water sources. They did that on their own. They also trained other people on their own. They mobilized and trained and offered 295 additional water, sanitation, and hygiene workshops, and they were able to provide education for over 14,000 people. Again, we did not fund these. They did this on their own and raised the funding on their own to do it. So if you're doing the math, over 44,000 people have been impacted just by these 10 teams of women. As entrepreneurs, and the final, we are tracking how much they're making. So individual ladies in the past 3 years have earned an average of $1,300 additionally to what they're already making, and this was through all of their WASH projects. As the organizations, in raising their own money, they actually, they were able to raise $38,000 in kind from their community. So that's in the form of labor, that's in the form of materials, $16,000 in cash from their community. We invested about $98,000 in seed grants. So that means the other, about $200,000 they raised on their own. This was us making sure that they had all the tools they needed to be able to mobilize the resources they needed to have to be able to expand their projects. So this, again, became their rise in status. This actually was an entry point for leadership for these women. We had 9 women win awards. We had half of our core trainees are now sitting on water boards. They were invited to sit on water boards, and they're influencing decisions and policy. 76% of them felt very confident running for political office. Ooh, exactly, right? And some of the other significant things that we thought was so I think felt so wonderful to us was the fact that 86% of the women felt comfortable charging for their time. That 90% of them felt confident bringing ideas to the discussion. 94% of them felt confident disagreeing with female colleagues, 80% disagreeing with male colleagues, 56% disagreeing with government officials. We're working on that. But the fact that these women who had 8th grade educations are feeling confident doing all of these things, charging for their time, disagreeing with people higher than, well, they perceive as being higher than them, influencing policy, that to us is change that we need to see happen. So these women are challenging the status quo. They are challenging everything that people think women should or should not be doing. They are they are uplifting themselves out of poverty. They're uplifting themselves out of silence and hiding themselves and being out there actually changing their communities. So for us, this is all about women's leadership. This is not just a WASH project, because we kind of consider this a WASH project disguised as a leadership project, or a leadership project disguised as a WASH project, because what has ended up happening is we're seeing these women find parts of themselves that were hidden, that they couldn't express themselves without bringing something to the community that everyone agreed upon. What was so great was that we've seen such little pushback from men thinking that they're taking their jobs. In fact, they're coming on board because they want to learn from these women how to build these simple technologies. So I wanted to share one last story. This is baby Gemma. And baby Gemma her mother Florence came to our first training with 9 months pregnant with Gemma. And she was learning how to build a rainwater harvesting system and tank. 2 days after she left the training, she had Gemma at home. She was learning how to build a rainwater harvesting system at 9 months pregnant. The next year, when she came to learn about sanitation, baby Gemma was on her back. And here she is helping her saw some rebar. The following year, she came and she was walking and she started to help build biosand filters with her mom. And now she's following her mom everywhere because her mother just got hired by WaterAid to supervise 27 other people to enforce a law in Uganda that requires all households have a toilet. Since then, they've built over 400 toilets. Baby Gemma's being raised in a world where women building, women leading, women earning money is normal. This is what we need to see happen. Yes. So let's not have certainly we can have an unexpected life, but let's be mindful about where we get and be that drop of water that will start that wave, that will change the world. Thank you.